And we are live again. I didn't do a video last week. My wife is on vacation, and 3 kids, sort of all at once, is a lot to manage. So, hold on, there. Turn the music off. I screwed that up. I left the music. I didn't hit the loop button. I didn't turn the loop button off. Anyway, my wife was on vacation, so I couldn't do a video last week. But I did sneak in an unboxing video for my Animal Warriors of the Kingdom because, quite frankly, I had to. I've been waiting forever, and I couldn't wait for her to get back before I would open them. So I did sneak that one in. But it's good to be back. I'm happy. I'm happy to be hanging out, talking about toys again. Talking about toys with some good friends as well. So without further ado, let's bring him on. One of them. Oh no, he's back. I thought he disappeared for a second. Paddy, what's going on, my friend?
Hey Adam, how you doing? Happy to
Good,
be here,
man. It's been
man.
a while. I mean, we
It's a
chat
forever one.
regularly, but it's been a while since you've been on video, so it's good to have you.
Happy to be
Um,
back, man.
and we've also got Brick, something fresh from a lovely spring walk,
Yes.
as well as well.
He was about to share my eating habits. I just had an In-N-Out burger, protein style, 4x4. That's four
That's
patties.
bonkers. That
And-
is.
And Adam's brain broke. So
That's just a lot of beef.
It is.
in one single bun.
yeah, I'm making up for those 4 years of being vegan and this plus 3 of being vegetarian. I feel like there was a deficit, like I earned it and now I can fill it in or something. I don't know.
Right.
Sorry,
And now
Earth.
you only eat meat.
Happy Earth Day.
Did you wash it down with a milkshake by chance?
I did not. I did not.
No, he washed it down with another beef patty.
Yeah, I watched the first 3 with one. So.
Good man.
Anyways, we're gonna chat. Chat about con exclusive figures. Do we like them? Do we hate them? Do we bother trying to get them? I obviously I've said this before. I'm in a small Western Canadian town. It's not as though geographically speaking, I'm able to pick these up in person. So, they're hit or miss. But we'll get into it. Before that, I'm going to jump in the chat here because it's a lot busier than normally is right off the jump. So, Toy Domination can't catch this one. Can't catch this one, love. That's how he and I talk to each other. Obviously.
Oh, that's sweet. Oh, sweetie.
So he'll scoop in the back end. I wanted to comment back because he posted that like an hour ago, but I couldn't. Something about love and back end, but it just didn't. I couldn't get the phrasing right. Anyway, Payne's Toy Samples is here. Kelly Chase just finished a movie. So he's joined us. eCollectibles is in the house. Larry Reed. Paddy is not only in the comments, but he's also on the video. And there was one more. Kevin chiming in early. I hate exclusives of all kinds. He's in a smaller Western Canadian town than I am. So I understand, the frustration, and we'll get to that for sure.
I feel like per our Star Wars conversations, Kevin should have ended that with "I have spoken" and just sort of walked away.
Yeah, exactly. Larry says, for someone who works for a Transformers convention, I see all the exclusive.
Nice.
Well, good for you, Larry. We're very happy for you. I kid. It's if I had access to all of them, I'd be happy, and I'd probably just rub it in people's faces. But anyways, speaking of rubbing things in people's faces, pickups. Paddy, did you get anything this week?
This week, or it sort of folds into last week, I got the Mythic Legions All-Star 5 was my most recent thing.
Yep.
So enjoying that. I still haven't unloaded everything, but like, man, Duban just it's made my world. Fantastic figure. Absolutely
That's a
love it.
great figure.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anything else I picked up? I haven't picked it up, but I ended up on the $5 Friday from GameStop. I grabbed the Monkey King. Was it Wong Wu? I can't even pronounce it.
Wukong?
Wukong. Thank you.
Wukong, yeah. By
From
Noda?
no, I believe
Oh.
it's who makes that? It's
Spin
Eddie's
Masters.
Spin Masters.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
League of Legends one, I think.
Oh, got
Is that
it.
what it's-
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna flow that into like something Legion centric eventually. It looks kind of
Yeah.
nice. It was one of those that I was like looking at the price tag and I'm like, at the high end, no, but for like a lark for like $5 Canadian, which works out to about, I don't know, $1
87
American,
cents US.
87 cents American.
Yeah.
I said, why not? So those are my major splurges of the week. Oh,
Brick,
and I
what
also
about you? Oh,
I grabbed one more thing that came in. It was the Masterverse Dark Evil Lyn, like as a
Mhm.
goddess, that finally shipped and arrived.
the mail order one or whatever.
Yeah,
Mhm.
an exclusive. Yeah, the one
The-
that's ultra buffed.
Yeah.
The Swole Evelyn.
Mm-hmm.
Brick, what about you?
Well, you and I were hanging out last night, and I unboxed some things. They're not quite from this week, but I finally opened up. I'm with you, Paddy. I finally opened up my two of my
Nice.
All Stars, the Motu, the Masters of the Universe sort of centric ones we opened up last night over on Oz's channel. I have yet to open up Dubon and the many others. I did an all in, so those are kind of my extras. And then I did get. You mentioned Masterverse, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. I grabbed the new Duncan,
Oh, nice.
and Shadow Weaver. So those haven't been opened yet. And then per Adam's fascination with our Target branded T-shirts, I did pick up a Lizzo T-shirt and thought about you as
I've got
I
one
went to
on
the
too.
branded TV section, T-shirt section. But pretty much that's it this week. We were joking around yesterday because he saw me open up a figure that I had ordered in March 2022, finally last night. So,
what did you get?
that was a Thundercats Lion-O.
Oh, nice.
I had to put him up next to the AWOC figures and just kind of do a little AWOC word comparison.
The unfortunate thing with that Lion-O is if you had opened it up a year ago, you would have really appreciated it a lot more, I think.
I still, you know me, I appreciate it for what it is. But the thing is, even if I like because you're thinking about like articulation and stuff, but really, if I was opening it last year, you could say the same thing about, because we were talking about how that's essentially like Motu classics.
Yeah.
Like I would have really appreciated it back in 2008 too, right? So
yeah.
It's a great figure.
I have that Lion-O as well, and it is a great figure for what it is. An update of sort of the vintage figure, but done in the cartoon deco. Don't get me started on them sort of later releasing a pinless version of the figure deco in like wave 11 or whatever they're on with Thundercats. But no, it is a great figure, but it's relative to some of the other stuff that we've gotten recently, it hasn't aged well. But it's certainly one of those things where if there was a better Lion-O, I would be interested, but it is arguably the best Lion-O figure you can currently buy.
Right. I'm that guy who's still buying classics because of characters. So like it doesn't bother me. Like I buy them for what they are. Usually like it's aesthetics, and if they could all pose to this level, that would be amazing. But again, I'm buying Legions and I love them. They can't quite pose in the same way. Still think they're amazing and some of the best figures out there. So,
well, absolutely. And I mean, like I have less of a connection to Thundercats toys as I do to Ninja Turtles toys, and so the Super 7 ones to me are like an absolute sort of perfect upgrade. I mean, compared to the like 5 POA turtles that I had, they pose incredibly well. Now, do they hit all the poses that I wish a Ninja Turtle could hit? No, but from sort of a toy perspective, they're still awesome. So I get it. Was that everything for you, Burke?
Yeah, I think so. And
Yeah.
the four patties that are sitting in my belly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned before, I finally got part of my AWOC, figures. So that's what came.
him.
And yeah, I'm super pumped.
That's the same one you were referring to. Got it.
It
That's
is, yeah.
cool.
No, yeah, I got the $5 Friday Wukong. It's a weird little figure. The proportions are wild. It's
like
got
new school
okay
graffiti
articulation, but then
exaggerated.
it's got like a static tail. There's no articulation in the tail of all things. But it's a fun little thing, and like Paddy said, for $5. I mean,
where was that on sale? He goes to his
GameStop in
phone.
Canada does a thing called $5 Fridays, and they just kind of clear out a bunch of junk. So normally it's like COVID masks and cable holders,
and of course Marvel Legend Eternal figures.
Yeah, and Marvel Legend Eternal figures, which will be back next time because they probably didn't sell them anyway, even for $5. I had 2 of them in my cart, and I was like, nah, $5 is a bit much.
I'm feeling a little ripped off because I got my Sprite for $8 from GameStop many moons ago.
But I did, as I said, I did get 2.
Yes.
Which is enough to sort of satiate my appetite for the time being, but sort of increase my desire to get more of them. They're everything I hoped they would be and more. The sculpts are phenomenal. The deco is phenomenal. They pose really, really well. Yeah. I have a couple little nitpicks, but it's sort of like, it would sort of bump a 10 out of 10 figure to 11 out of 10. It's certainly not like anything that I'm going to hold against them going forward. So, yeah, they're super, super fun. And I was saying, sight unseen without having them in hand, that you guys got to go and buy them. Now I've got them in hand, and I'm like, man, if you don't buy them, you're going to be missing out. Because they really, really are. And Brick, I mean, you can attest to this. They're so much fun in hand. And they have sort of a nostalgic feeling, despite being a brand new IP. Like, it's just the weirdest. It's the weirdest thing. Like, they're just awesome toys, great IP. The comic book is fantastic. We were talking about all this stuff last night on Oz's
and I didn't say this
channel.
to you last night or before, but it's like when I play with these, it feels like what Thundercats was in my head.
Yeah.
And I felt that yesterday as I was opening Lion-O, because again, when I look at him, it looks like a human sort of replicating a cat. Like, these are actual like cats. And then for the longest time in my head, I thought Thundercats were like, yeah, they're cats. And you look at them, you're like, oh, it just looks like a dude with like red hair.
It's a clown man.
Yeah.
Clown makeup.
But this has got, cat features and faces. So again, I think this is what was going on in my head.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So they're beautiful.
Yeah.
They're great.
I didn't notice the ponytail at the back of a trade. That's fantastic. Oh, yeah.
Well, see, Adam knew that early because he got a exclusive head early compared. Yeah. I'll rub that in their faces for you there, Adam.
You know what? I'll double down on that and tell you that Jason's been so apologetic about me not being able to get my figures, and like, no international customers have got them. Like, it's not just me, right? But I talk to him all the time, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll throw some extra stuff in the box." And I have an idea of what's getting in that box. I just don't know when, if ever, it's going to get shipped. But as I've sort of been saying to anybody that is sort of in the same boat that I was as of a week ago, they are worth the wait. You will be sort of rewarded for your patience in that respect. They're fantastic. Anyway, jumping back into the comments here, let's see what people are talking about, and then we will get into the topic. I think we're going to start by sort of going over some of the exclusives before we discuss, the merits of con exclusives, because that's kind of Kevin's saying I'd rather us all have the cool toys than have something that no one else has. And we'll get to that point. And if I don't, remind me, Kevin, because I actually spoke to a few toy company people to sort of get a bit of a vibe for like how they feel about con exclusives. And I was kind of surprised what their answers were. Their answers were pretty much universally the same and not quite what I expected, but Payne says, as someone who cannot logistically travel to cons, I can appreciate when they make con exclusives available for shipping. Absolutely. And we will talk about that for sure. AI says con exclusives have gotten much easier since companies have opened up to international orders over the last few years. Before that, it was impossible to grab them for a reasonable price. Kayla Silva has popped in and said, hey, I'll just pop in to say hi and go Warriors.
Yay.
And she says, smack that like.
That's a hockey team, right?
Yes. It's the San Francisco Warriors, right? Is that?
I'm kidding. It's a basketball team. And yes, it's the Golden State Warriors.
Now, San Francisco did have was it San Francisco? The California Golden Seals? I think it was San Francisco, Bay Area. They had an NHL team. Look it up. It was
where would they play?
It wasn't NHL. What was it? It was like it was professional
AHL
before.
maybe?
Yeah, like before they kind of came together. Apparently, it was like wild. Like it was just a wild team. But anyway, I only found out about that recently. Kevin, in regards to AWOC says so jealous. He says I've got 11 on pre-order. I've got more than that, but I don't know how many. And I don't think I want to know because I just keep adding to my pre-orders.
So
because they're not shipping. I'm just like, maybe I'll just add one more. Maybe I'll get one more of this. Maybe I'll get like this pail. It won't be the only pail that I get.
I was gonna say at that point you're army building. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. AI says, glad you got yours, Adam. I'm still waiting for my order of wave 1. Yes. Kelly said they used to have really great $5 Fridays, but it's been recently lacking. I found that the sort of amount of stuff and the quality of stuff kind of dropped off more or less when sort of all the lockdown stuff got lifted because people could now go into the stores, and I think people did, and so I think they sold through a bunch of that junk in store. Paint's Toy Sample says immense fun, can't wait for wave 2. Kelly said, if I had to choose one AWOC figure, what would it be? Let's go in the reverse order. Let's Brick. What? If you would,
what would I recommend?
I think he's asking like if you could recommend one figure, what would it be?
Well, so because he said if I could, what would it be? I almost would give people sort of a question here, like a flow chart, like primates, felines, right? And then from there, you're just sort of like human or animal. And if you went feline, human, you would go with this guy. If you went human, feline, you'd go with Tiberius, the tiger-looking thing, because he definitely leans more into the animal side. I'd say the same thing goes for the primate side of things. If you're really leaning towards more of the human, you go with like a Kali, because he's very much like, and then everything else.
Yeah, he's all armored up too, so there's more like
that would be sort of
there's less furriness.
Yeah, that's how I'd recommend to someone. But for me, if it were just me, I'd be Tiberius because I like really leaning into the animal and I like the vibrant colors. Right now, I'm really leaning into that for some reason. I think I'm chasing the 80s in that way. So, rather than the grim, dark, gray, monotone, a lot of my figures have. So,
Paddy, what about you?
Don't have them in hand, so it's not quite a fair one. But I will say I'd probably end up with Pale. The only reason is like I can build a shelf or a display around a single hero. We were talking earlier about Thundercats. I only own 2 Super 7 Thundercats figures, and that's Lion-O and Pantero, right? Didn't really need the rest, just wanted some representation, wanted some Saturday morning cartoon vibes in a section of my shelf, right? So for that reason, I'm going to go Pale. Even though I know that Jason and the team are probably going to hit us with more Pales as the line continues, I like that.
At least 2 more I know of.
At least, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like they're having that like one heroic figure and then like one sort of villainous guy would be my move, and I'd
Yeah.
probably lean more towards pale for the first one if I only could choose one.
Mhm.
But I would highly recommend to Kelly, don't settle for just one. Get
Yeah.
get a few more. Go at least. I mean, if you're just sampling, I'd say at least 2 or 3. No, just so you can have like some type of display afterwards.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd sort of say the same thing. I'd say get an ape and get a cat, because then you're kind of covered in that respect.
Have you been sort of pushing the idea of the basics, or the what are they called, the ancients?
The primal
Those sort of
Primal
ancients.
the
Ancients.
primal ancients in the second wave. Those might be fun if you're only doing a few and you're not committed to the brand, but you could sort of mess them around and put them with different sort of figure
I I
lines. I don't know.
I would, but I wouldn't, because the accessories are so good with these
That's
that,
true.
like, for the difference in price, I just don't know that it's worth, saving the few bucks.
Sure.
What I would recommend, Kelly, and this is the correct answer, and you'll understand why when I sort of finish my explanation. And I've said this before, so I'm sort of sticking to what I've said before. Hit up Mike at eCollectibles and get an order in for a Vero Atlas, which was the Kickstarter exclusive. You will not be able to get it again. It is one of the smallest production runs of any figures that they've done, which means that if you get it and you love it, great, you haven't missed out. And if you get it and you don't love it, you will easily be able to sell it for what you paid for it,
Yeah.
because the retail price on it is already above original retail price. So that is the correct answer. Get a Vero Atlas. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely ordered more than one Vero Atlas for that
Oh,
very
okay.
reason. I also think it's a fantastic looking figure, and his accessory, he's got like a translucent kind of crystal spear staff, which is unique to him. And the color palette of like the sort of white tiger with the purple, I think looks really nice.
And Vero Atlas is essentially this with a furry upper
Yeah.
torso.
Yes. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, one of my favorite figures, and so being able to see that sculpt, all white with it's gonna be cool.
It's gonna be cool. It's gonna
I
be
did not order him. I was incorrect, and then on a stream, you gave me that exact same spiel that you just gave
the
to
same
the world,
pitch to everybody.
and you damn got me. So
I have him
points,
with my
points to you.
I have them with my Kickstarter, but yeah, like you mentioned, eCollectibles will have, and a few other retailers. If you haven't yet, definitely lock that one down, because it will be going up.
And yeah, and Jason said like that one's not going to get made again. It was a Kickstarter exclusive, but there's a minimum order quantity, so like the only units that are left to be purchased are the ones that are sort of the overstock. They won't be reordered. They won't be infilling. If everything blows up and everybody wants wave 1 again, he might do wave 1 again, but he's not going to do Vero Atlas again. So, I mean, FOMO is a terrible thing. I'm just saying.
This is great context for the conversation around exclusives.
Exactly. Sorry, Payne said, or sorry, I'm gonna go back a little bit here. Kevin said Vero looks so dope. AI said, I'm very excited for the future waves. Love the design, loving the chunkiness and the level of articulation. He also said, I definitely ordered Atlas. Love the purple. Payne says, I ordered 1. Do I need 2? You don't need any.
That's true.
As I've said, these are want-based items, not need-based items, but it may come in handy. And as I always say too, buying it at retail will be the cheapest you'll ever be able to find it.
Yeah, Paynes and I have the same disease, so I totally understand his line of questioning.
Kevin says he was in my first order. I'm pretty sure I told Kevin it should be in his first order too. So. And Kelly says pre-ordering intensifies. The longer I have to wait for these, the worse it is. Because like I said, I feel like every week I'm just like adding one thing or another, or tweaking things and being like, well, I got 1 of these, but if I get 2, I can kind of customize one. My tendency is like I don't customize the first one. I can only customize and sort of mess around with future ones, because then at the end of the day, I still have the original to sort of go back to.
Sure.
So that's kind of how I do it, which is why I ordered an extra pail, which is why I'm sort of ordering extras of just about everything. 2 seems like the least that I'm getting of any figure at this point, but we'll see. Con exclusives, let's jump into it. The most recent one, and arguably kind of the most exciting one, because it's kind of a big deal, being that it is a version 2 of a figure that, Paddy, you might have. I know I don't, and I know that Brick doesn't. But
True.
the 4 Horsemen for Legions Con is doing a Vorgus Vermilius version 2. He is the knight in the blood armor, or lack of knight in blood armor, as it were. I won't go over the bio or anything like that because it's long and it's pretty involved and pretty cool. But we will look at the pictures.
His original release, it kind of has that vibe of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula from like '92. That sort of armor that he wears at the beginning. It's not the exact same, but it has that feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And it like, yeah, I mean the red armor is striking. The fact that he's in the Olympia's Brood, he's a vampire, but he's kind of beyond that, right? Like he's all the vampires are in black. You get a few hits of purple on a few of them, but he's uniquely red, which I think is just kind of cool. Like I like that he's unique in that faction. I mean, I like that faction, and so I'm happy to get something that's a little bit outside of the typical mold for Alithia's Brood.
He's scarier than poor Dragul with his like ostentatious outfit.
Yeah,
the
very
faux,
true.
The faux Hordak outfit.
The blue and the bright red. Yeah, I mean Dragul. I had and I sold it. I was like, it doesn't quite fit my shelf, but and this
look at that cape.
It's bonkers.
It's all about the cape. Yeah, that's totally what grabbed me right away. Just looking at that, and I believe it's like that same leathery material on the ogre vampire.
I don't know.
Oh, maybe. I hadn't noticed that. You might be right. I'm looking at it now.
It definitely has a different texture than anything we've seen.
Yeah, it's just
we need to get C. Jessam in here to clarify, because I'm sure this is his work, right?
Yes, it definitely is.
I assume it is theirs. Yeah. Could you? Is there a way you can zoom in at all?
Enhance.
What do you want? The back of the cape?
Yeah. Enhance. There you go. No, it's not the same material. It's not the same material, but it's like it looks more like a I don't know what you call it, but it looks like a coated cotton. I don't know. It's nice.
Yeah.
That stitching is everything. It really looks good. Wow.
Well, and each of the little flaps is wired, right? So you're gonna get each of the flaps is wired, but then it's like if I'm sort of interpreting this correctly, and I'll use this one because I can sort of see the stitching the best. Can you see my cursor there? Yeah. I think it's wired around the outside.
Yep. It is.
And then I think it's wired through the center.
Yep. So I'm pretty sure it is.
So you're going to be able to get Trevor had this in hand. Let's take a look at.
Yeah, look at that.
Whew. Look at that.
Yeah, it's definitely that, because if you look at the edges, those would flop over if it was just that sort of internal rib. Gravity would be pulling them down. I mean, that thing is like fully just a two-dimensional thing you can move around and sculpt.
It's another character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By two-dimensional, I mean it's flat surface, but you can fold it in all sorts of ways and let it just sit there. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the Spawn vibe. It's the
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yep. But I look at that and it's exactly what Paddy's saying. It reminds me of that Vlad the Impaler blood red. You know, I know Adam, you love the red and the black characters, but this is different, right? It's not, other than the trim around it, it's really kind of this muted blood red like the original. And
well,
right.
this I like, and that's the like the so
Yeah.
I don't. What I actually more specifically dislike
Color
is
blocking.
predominantly black with red as the highlight.
Yeah.
This to me is a red figure. So this is like I don't know, maybe that's
with a big
weird.
solid blackish cape, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean it's soft goods. It's different, right? It doesn't feel like part of the design.
Sure.
Anyway.
Enhance right around the face area.
Yeah, so that's the head
that.
that they did for Cosmic, actually. That Manny Faces.
Yep.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Operator
figure repurposed
or operative
Nice.
with a vampire deco. It is new pauldrons as well, which is
what about those
interesting.
horns? Are those horns new?
I don't think so. I believe those horns have been on
maybe an elf.
Ragna Stormforger.
Yeah,
is that
with the striations like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I believe so.
Okay. I love it. They look great, and the gloves. If you notice on that hand there, just that sort of, it's got like a, you know, the little highlight or the ribbing on each edge, just really pulls out a lot of that detail.
Yeah. Oh, it looks great.
It looks fantastic. I mean, look, I also noticed this, and I don't know if it's just the lighting or whatever, but the chainmail looks kind of
purplish. Yeah, like a maroon purplish.
So, you know, black and red, this is not. This is red and purple and white, and to me there's a lot more going on with this. And then, you know, here's the con exclusive sort of aspect of it. We get the translucent consumed head in the Legions con, and to me that's the best of the three heads. Like, that's the head that I'm kind of most excited about, especially because he's sort of consumed inside the armor. This is sort of the mid point where he still exists within the armor, but, you know, he's not, he doesn't at the same time. But yeah, I'm really excited for this. The accessories look great. Like I said, the three heads is great. Strangely, I still think the version 1, like the kind of the blood armor, you know, for lack of sort of better description, it sort of looks like it's soaked in blood, whereas this looks like red armor. I'm hoping that maybe there's more of an aspect where it kind of has that look than it sort of is showing in the pictures, because I really like that aspect of the version 1. But, you know, with the version 1 being sort of priced as it is, I'm more than happy to pick up this version 2.
Do you think with this exclusive coming out, that might sort of tip the market slightly? I mean, I don't see anyone burning their V1s.
No.
But I could see some people, you know, making that decision that, listen, the version 2 is a superior, for whatever their own tastes are, a superior figure. Maybe I sell this not quite a ridiculous aftermarket, but, you know.
Sure. I could see it, but I mean, Vorgus goes for what, $250?
Yeah, I believe so.
Like, let's say 200 to 300.
Yeah,
he's not going to go below, you know, 175.
Agreed.
So it's still, to me, like, it's still not a feasible purchase for me.
What I will say is, I think that the demand for it, like, it might take you longer to find someone who's willing to buy one at that price or even lower, when they're just sort of like, well, you know, in some people's minds, I've got this character already. And, you know, I kind of like the way they're approaching it. They being Four Horsemen, in terms of giving us, every time they give us like this next version of these characters, they're very much the same character, but like plussed in some way, given whatever new production techniques they got, like the soft goods. And so, but really they stand out as two very different figures.
Yes.
If you've got the first one, not a lot of, a finite amount of people do. And if you want to chase and be complete about it and have both, then I hear you. But there's a lot of folks like myself who will be like, if I needed to choose one, I can't afford both. I would just have no problem going after this one versus feeling the need to have the original.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. The
100%.
paint job on that first one is different. It's true. Like, it definitely looks like it's soaked and been stained in blood. This is like he was like, Boba Fett after he got his freshly repainted paint.
Yeah,
Armor,
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, that's another thing too, is that because of the whole, head to toe, that figure is essentially one color, or sort of one style of deco. You can piece that figure together and paint it yourself, and you've essentially got a version 1. This, I mean, my sewing techniques aren't quite up to snuff to be able to do the cape, let alone, paint all the fine detailing, where they're sort of hitting it with the red and stuff like that. Then on top of that, there's a PowerCon Mythic Legions figure. We get this is the Instagram post for Horsemen. This is sort of the best version of the pictures that I could get. It's not ideal, but it is what it is. So we get Demistros. I don't know, whatever. Which is a fantastic looking sort of, knight, fully armored body. You get 2 different heads with this one as well. The PowerCon exclusive being the translucent head with the translucent hands. Again, the translucents kill me. That's the aspect of this figure that I want the most. I don't really care for the this version of it. Just not really my thing. But the armor looks fantastic. The cape looks fantastic. So it's certainly a figure that I will try to pick up, given the opportunity.
Given that he doesn't, when I'd read through the bio, he's not affiliated with any particular group, right?
No,
he's just like a classic villain. It almost feels like a figura obscura in a sense, because it's not. I mean, it is definitely a Mythic Legion figure, 100%, but it doesn't quite fit into anything that I'm aware of in terms of the clans or the mythos directly.
So with the PowerCon exclusives, what they've done, at least with this one, because it's a PowerCon exclusive, this isn't a PowerCon release, which they've typically done with the tribute figures. This is different. So this, they've said, is sort of outside the lore. So it's in the same way that Figura Obscura is like, they're made with Mythic Legions parts, but they're not Mythic Legions figures or characters. So if you're collecting Mythic Legions, you don't, strictly speaking, need those Figura Obscura. This is the same as that. He doesn't have a faction. It's not anything, but this is Scareglow.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like the PowerCon thing, right? Like, it still very much feels like a tribute figure. And I think if you're buying all the tribute figures, this one with the glowing head and the glowing hands is kind of like, I don't know that many people would sort of want to pass on this, even though they haven't sort of come out and say that. I'm not even a Motu guy, and that was instantly what I saw when I saw this picture.
It's funny you said that, and it didn't occur to me that way, but I see it in that he's a glowing skull-ish character, I guess. But it's the full armor. But yeah, I guess I could see it.
Or no, sorry, not Scareglow. Skelegod.
Oh, sure. Well,
yes.
Sure. Yeah. Definitely much closer to that.
But I'm not a Motu guy, so I don't remember what his name is.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't really even embrace that character because he came from the Revelation thing.
Yeah.
So I could see that. But
anyone? I mean, like I said, if you're doing all the tributes, do you need this one? As you said, it's sort of like a peripheral kind of thing. It's not one of your classic Motu inspired figures.
Did anyone in the chat end up grabbing it? Or, I mean, I didn't personally, but no. Adam knows.
It looks like Payne's did.
I tried to.
Good job. Good job.
When you say tried to, meaning it wasn't available?
No. Well,
It was the calculations. Is that what happened?
part of the calculations. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what happened to me too. But go ahead, you tell your story first.
I've sort of got it's somebody that's going to PowerCon. If they can get
Right.
one more than what they've already gotten, they're gonna try to hook me up with one.
Mhm.
I did when I was so the power. We'll get to this, but I guess this is a good segue. Well, why don't we talk about the next thing, the next figure, and then we'll sort of circle back because it'll be more relevant when we.
Well,
sort
let
of
me tell you where I was at with it. I definitely wanted a different PowerCon exclusive figure, and that's the Tangerine one. So I was like, I want that figure. This was like, yeah, that would be kind of cool. I don't feel like powerfully drawn to it. Actually, I'm not crazy about the head in particular. I never have, even in other Legions figures. That's just me. But the translucency is really cool, and so I went to kind of add it and see how much it would be. And essentially, you're paying shipping separately from them, and it was just way more than that I'd bargained for, essentially. So I said, nah, I'm good. I could walk away. And even if there are folks, going there, I was like, oh, I'm cool. I think I'm cool without it. At least that's what I'm telling myself.
I think when I did the math, because you could order 2, so I put 2 in the cart. I did the shipping and sort of went through everything. And I think in the end, it was going to cost me about $130 for one of them, Canadian, which is about $100 US.
What was the base price? Do you remember?
60.
Okay.
But then there was like handling fees, and the shipping rate was like quite high.
He was 60 limit too.
Yeah.
And that's assuming, of course, that I don't get hit with taxes and duties, which is a variable, because sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. You really don't know. And for me, I just, if we ever do a video like this, talk about Kickstarters, that'll be the one thing. Like when a Kickstarter doesn't tell me how much I'm going to pay for shipping, let alone, what I'm going to have to be surprised with when it crosses the border, I just, it kind of rubs me the wrong way, because like, if, say you go all in on a line, but you don't even know what the shipping is. And then they're like, oh, by the way, the shipping's $150. You're like, well, I can't get my money back. So now I'm sort of obligated to pay this. And so even like in a Kickstarter where like, oh, we're going to charge you in the backer kit for shipping, and it'll get adjusted and blah, blah, blah. I typically will order like one item and then sort of see what the backer kit tells me shipping is going to be before I do any more.
Yeah.
When they tell me how much the shipping is going to be, at least I know, right? And then I can sort of calculate that into my price, because it is the unfortunate reality that as a Canadian collector, the taxes, fees, the shipping, all that kind of stuff adds up really darn quick.
Yep.
And I hate paying that stuff. I would rather pay a Canadian retailer to get it to them, tell me how much it's going to cost me to buy it from them, and pay like that price.
Sure.
Even if it's the same price, I just would rather, I would rather just know what it's going to cost before I get it, kind of thing.
Well, yeah. And so we'll talk a little bit more as we talk exclusives, but for me, it was a $60 figure. And then I think it was like another 20 some dollars to California for whatever reason on top of the other figure, plus the 20 some to ship it. When I did the calculations, I was like, what other figures that are going to be coming down the pike? Even just if I'm leaving it specifically to Mythic Legions or Cosmic Legions.
Yeah.
Like that's about 2 figures. So, I'm like, nah. And so that's the thing with exclusives. Like that's kind of how I weigh it in my head, and we can talk a little bit more about that later.
And I do that too. I look at it and sort of go like, okay, do I want this more than, this? And I have to sort of weigh that. But
do I want this more? And is it like truly unique? That's the other piece. It's like of the other, because I know I'm going to be buying Mythic Legions figures. Yeah. Does it feel truly unique and special compared to what might be coming down the pike?
Is this an offering that is sort of justified of being sort of like, is its exclusivity truly exclusive, or is this 30% exclusive could I, you know, Vorgus version 1 being a good example. Could I piece
Mm-hmm.
this together myself? You know, easily. And the answer for Vorgus is like, you kind of could.
Yeah.
A can of black primer, and then you know, get your color match, probably 2 pots of Citadel paint, and you're good to go. So you drop $250, or you know, half that to sort of do one yourself. It's, you know, that's where it gets a little bit interesting. But the other PowerCon exclusive that I think I think we're all in agreement that, like, none of us ordered the Demistros. All 3 of us have this guy on order. The PowerCon Animal Warriors of the Kingdom Thane repaint. It's just a straight repaint of Thane. Tanger. So he matches the Primal Ancients. Feral Beastie.
Beasties.
Is that what he's?
Yeah.
Yep. Is that what he called?
Feral Beasties.
That sort of orange orangutan kind of look with the white face and sort of the blue.
Beastman.
Man, yeah, and it's a beast man, right? So that I thought that with the Primal Ancient, and then, you know, Jason kind of doubled down with this, and this thing looks awesome, and this was definitely one I was not going to miss. So I started campaigning very early. I talked to Jason. I knew sort of when and where this might sort of be available. Was sort of asking people if they were going to PowerCon, what, you know, how can I get this? I had mine locked in before they even sort of opened up the non-attendee pre-order sales. Paddy and I both actually got hooked up by Hella Dope Toys.
Yeah.
And very, very reasonably priced, and very, very nice of them to sort of offer it. Ted actually offered it, you know, during, I think it was during a live stream. And
we were all on that stream together.
I'm going to take you up on that.
Yeah.
And I did. And so that's how I'm getting mine. But again, yeah, the same thing with this. Like, it was, you know, $60 for sort of con attendees. Then it was $67 for non-attendees.
Yeah.
Plus shipping and fees and so on and so forth. And again, for Canada, the shipping was, it was not cheap. And then, you know, you add all that stuff up. And I thought, like, okay, you know, I'm glad. I was just glad that I'm sort of able to get one through a friend. Payne says, I needed the orangutan.
See, for this
coloring,
piece,
so yes. What's that?
For this piece, I was really really happy for the connection there, Adam, and the sort of help out. But I probably would have bought it directly from their site if I had no alternative. And my rationale on this, like, it's great to be hooked up, and I'm super thankful. That said, I knew that I wanted this piece in my collection, 100%. He just looks so cool, and I know that in the truest sense, he's like a repaint, like you said, of Thane. But he's still so damn cool that, like, I think he's the embodiment of what the perfect exclusive is. Like, it's not a unique sculpt. It is a repurposed sculpt, but with just enough, like, difference, just enough panache, and just enough interest that it's like, yeah, it's a must-have for the hardcore fan. But if you were just casually collecting, like Kelly before I'd mentioned, you know, if you could only pick 2 or 3 or one AWOC figure, maybe he's not the right one, but, you know, like, you could live without him in your collection. But, you know, if you're really into it, I'm very happy to have this piece in the collection.
I would say, like, on that level, sorry, just to like, in terms of, you know, Kelly getting just one, I would say get one that's easy to get in some respects, because, like, jumping through the hoops of, like, the shipping and the fees and stuff like that, I just don't think it's worth it if you're not like, we're all kind of all in on AWOC. So for us, it's like a no-brainer. Also, it's early in the line, so it's sort of like, if this came out in a few years, once we've had Thane, once we've had that sort of the horrid repaint of Thane as well, and then sort of a couple more bucks, you know, the female and then the sort of slender buck, if this came out then, we might be like, I don't know if it's worth it. But now we're just like, we're just hungry for more
Yeah.
product, right? So I think it's as you said, Paddy, this is like the perfect con exclusive for me, at least. Because again, just like that Four Horsemen one, the PowerCon exclusive, this is like a non story relevant character. Like he's not a named character. It's essentially an army builder, but I mean I don't think people are necessarily going to army build this because it's not even a horrid character. So it's sort of like you could have it in your collection, great, but if you don't have a hole in your collection.
I'll tell you, you guys gave me an idea. Speaking of army building around that, I already have a Feral Beastie coming in my Kickstarter that I'd added. I think I might grab a second one just so we can have a little squad. You
A
know what I
squad,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah. And then
I got
just
my squad coming in.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I might grab an extra one or two of them just so Tangis has like that extra sort of backup. And I could definitely, what's fun about them, you could kind of kit bash some of the armors onto it to make them a little bit different. It'd be great.
I'm looking at Tanger and that Primal Ancient and sort of the swappability of different parts. And I'm thinking like, you know, they can have their own little kind of squad within the world that doesn't have to be something that's sort of pulled from the comic book. That's kind of the beauty of this line too. But anyway,
so for me,
they could be a bad batch.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So to go back first to Kelly, when we were looking at that, part of me was thinking, "Ooh, there's the Thane, which is like the standout character, very different from the others." But if you're really only gonna get one from the line, I agree with you in trying to get one that's like easier to get, but also one that's probably pretty representative of most of the line. So I would have gone with just like one of the main sort of characters, given the choices. For this is like it's an exclusive, and even if you had this, like, how well does it truly capture Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, right? No, it doesn't. It's a standout character. It's meant to be different. It's actually meant to also be a clear tribute to a completely different property, Masters of the Universe. So for me, I agree with you that this is the sort of perfect exclusive, especially when you consider what PowerCon used to be, which was specifically Masters of the Universe convention. And so this is the same place where we got those Mythic Legions tribute figures of like Adamon and really like those, it's using existing pieces, very specific. And you kept using the word repaint, which it is in like conceptually, but it's not in that they're actually casting the plastic in that orange, right? Just like the Feral Beasties, right? So that said, I think it's a great one. It's definitely one that I wanted, but it was actually one that I was almost going to pass on. Remember when they first announced that you could sort of pre-order the exclusives if you were attending, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. I thought they were shipping. Whatever, let it go. I was there on the stream with you when Ted was offering that offer, and I was like, no, you know what? It's cool. It's not meant to be. It is what it is. And then it's like, hey, non-attendees, we're doing this. And it's like, all right, we're doing this.
I'm back in.
If it's easy enough, because I don't really agree with this is where I get annoyed a little bit with exclusives and some of the other things that happen. Like, if you're going to make me work a ton and make me pay a ton, there's a certain point where that no longer becomes fun for me. And, I'm in it to like have fun with these things and enjoy them. It's like, cool, I'll let someone else deal with that. So I almost was just, I'll see, I'll log on and see if I can do it. And I could. So I got it. And I'll tell you, I got the two Feral Beasties to be squad members with a Beastman initially, right? That was the idea. On the back of the Masterverse New Eternia, there's like Nate Bartz sort of drew in these other characters that were of the same, and one was a female, and there were two male ones that like, oh, that's the Feral Beasties, and then now we have like this other like brute in that, like this bruiser tank for that squad. And I was like, cool, let's do it. So it fulfills the sort of like Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. I'm into that. Let me get this. Ooh, it's a completely different, unique colorway, and it's an homage and works in the whole Masters of the Universe thing. Perfect sort of like intersection for me. And it wasn't that hard to get. So Now, if we could get to the exclusive conversation, and if this is going to be sort of the state of what it's like to get an exclusive, I'm all for it. But that's not always the case. So when they get a little bit more complicated and harder, like, we'll talk. Yeah.
And I think that's, it's a good time to sort of segue into sort of the conversation about con exclusives and sort of what their value is, why they exist. Do we care enough about them? Like you said, maybe let's start with, let's just start in sort of we'll start sort of small in terms of like personal sort of opinion on cons. Con exclusives, and then we'll sort of get into more sort of specific details, specific questions. I know that at least for me, like I was, I've had this conversation with a couple people this week just because I've been sort of talking about this, thinking about this with a few of these coming up recently. I kind of don't care one way or the other whether exclusives of any kind exist. Con exclusives, sort of fall under that category. I, as a Canadian collector in a small Western Canadian town, have really no, I can't geographically get to the locations where these are going to be on offer. And as somebody who's collected for years, and collected before Facebook groups and before I had connections, in the Bay Area of California or in Montreal, Quebec, on the far end of the country. Well, not quite. No disrespect to people that are further east than Montreal, but basically, I had come to terms with the fact that con exclusives were something that I just would never expect to get.
Yeah.
Now the world's kind of changed. A lot of things went online and have kind of stayed online.
Yep.
The availability of this stuff seems to be getting easier. But like you said, Brick, if you got to pay like a crazy amount to get it, I'm out.
Yeah.
Although, I did read somebody's comment on a post related to a con exclusive, and he said, look, if you go to the con, this is a collector's perspective, not a company's perspective, but if you go to the con, you're paying transportation fees, you're paying, a hotel accommodation fee, you're paying for your meals, you're paying for your ticket to get in. If it's San Diego Comic-Con, that's certainly not free to go to. So let's say you drop, and I'm going to go really low. Let's say that you live sort of close enough that you have to spend the night, but you can still drive. Let's say you go for one night and it's $300, right? If I don't go, this is your logic, Brick. If I don't go, I've just saved $300. So if I can get that con exclusive, which is really my big draw for the con, for $100, I mean, I saved myself $200. Saved myself $200.
Yeah.
Collector
but that's sort of my sort of.
It's multiversal thinking, is what it is, Adam.
Yes. Paddy, where are you at?
I don't overtly hate them. Like some people, I know some people in the chat. Yeah,
it's a slow burn.
We were talking before we started. I find for bigger companies, it's become increasingly easy. Like, I don't really sweat the Hasbro exclusives, just because, I mean, for what I'm collecting now, and even my Hasbro purchases have gone significantly down in this past year and will continue to drop. The ones that I do buy, I can usually find pretty easily. What was it? Serpentor was last year's San Diego, was it?
Yeah.
That was not hard for us to collect. In Canada, we end up getting them through GameStop.
GameStop
has some type of exclusive tie, so they end up releasing most of those anyway. PulseCon, I think they have. They got Dr. Mindbender, so I think he was PulseCon.
Yep.
Most of the cons are covered that way, which is good. It's a little bit of work for sure to be able to get the codes and put in your pre-order so you secure it. It's a bit of work, but I mean, for most collectors, I feel probably a manageable amount of stress. I only resent them if they end up putting in a character that is so important and do such a low run then I'm resentful for them. Or I'm like, this is manipulative, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the last 5 years, I can't really say that they've done that. Any of the companies really. I haven't. Is there, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but is there any exclusive you guys have run into in the last 5 to 6 years that you're like, oh, why did they do that? Why did they make it so impossibly hard for us to get?
I mean, you mentioned Serpentor and Mindbender, and I think those are both characters that everybody that's a GI Joe. Well, no, I shouldn't say everybody.
A lot,
You
a lot of people.
it's a bit hyperbole because there's certainly
Sure.
people that won't, but those are pretty major characters, and I think they were relatively easy in Canada to get, but I do still know of Canadian collectors that missed them.
Sure.
And I think it was harder in the US because you either got it through the very, very, very small amount that got released on Hasbro Pulse, or you had to be there to get the promo code. But even being there, that's the other thing. Like, even if you were
It's sort
at
of
San
locked.
Diego Comic Con, you weren't guaranteed to get the Comic Con exclusive because it wasn't physically there. You had to pre-order. You had to get a code and pre-order it.
It's the weird
So it was
code
like
thing they do.
it was
Yeah.
just as hard if you were at the con to get it as if you were sitting at home, waiting for somebody to send you a message that said like, "Hey, go and pre-order this thing now."
But I mean,
Yeah.
like companies like Four Horsemen, they end up re-releasing most of their exclusives in a non-exclusive format, which,
Mhm.
I mean, we were just talking about Vorgus before. It sucks that I'll likely have to get it without the Bloodhead, but I'm not crushed by that sort of reality. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's really cool. I think if I were so inclined, if I end up at Legion Con this year, I'm sure somebody will paint me up one really nice.
Mhm.
And the customizing world sort of for Legions, it's so great. Like, you could pretty much buy any head you need to sort
Yeah.
of customize your figure. Like, the community is so wonderful, absolutely wonderful for that. I feel that Four Horsemen probably do it the best.
Mhm.
Exclusives,
Mhm.
like, you still have tons of chances to get versions of it.
Mhm.
So in the stuff that I collect, I can't say any of the manufacturers are treating me like, or doing wrong by me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel that con exclusives necessarily rub me the wrong way. I
Mhm.
would love for it to always be super easy and like snap my fingers,
Mhm.
but that's also not the hobby that we're all in, right? Like,
Mhm.
there is a bit of gratification from the work you have to put in to get stuff. And
Yeah.
I think as long as that's like a manageable amount of energy and money,
Mhm.
then it's fine. You know, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
not to say it like it's a bit cliche, but like, it's a necessary evil. I get why exclusives exist.
Brick, what about you?
So, I mean, I have no real, like, I can walk away from things fairly
Mhm.
easy, so it doesn't bother me. I guess it comes down to sort of the way you're collecting. The whole completist thing is not anywhere
Yeah,
near where I go, but I
that's a good point.
understand that there are folks who are absolutely
Mhm.
want to be able to chase and get everything in their collection. So I get
Yeah.
that, and I can understand how that could be incredibly frustrating, but from sort of a if I were the company, the question is, like, those are your hardcore fans, but
Mhm.
what what percentage of the people who you're trying to sell to, is that really? And so you kind of balance that with, now you're also trying to manage what you were saying, Adam, is that, like, hey, if my hardcore fan base is willing to come to a convention, especially one like Legion's Con, that is like, it's our convention, right?
Mhm.
Like, so there is this sense of, like, well, we kind of want to incentivize that a little bit and kind of create
Yeah.
something sort of special. So I get
Yeah.
that. Here's the piece that like, given all that, like, I'm fine with it. Sometimes there are things that are great and I'm like, man, I wish I had that. But like, I think here's the kicker for me. If this were, say, 15 years ago and I was really into collecting, my what I would be saying would probably be very different. But in
Mhm.
2023, a lot of us have been saying on these streams, it's sort of like, this is a crazy time to be collecting.
Mhm.
So it's not like, if oh no, I didn't get that Tanger, like, couple hours from now, some third party, some company like no
Yeah.
one's heard of is going to produce something like, holy crap, what is that thing? I want it.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
well as
Right.
the things filled with nostalgia that I'm like, oh my God, they're creating this thing that I never thought they would make. And the reality is I'm not, like, money's finite. So I'm going to pick and choose anyway. So again, if this were 15 years ago where it's like, man, there's like 2 companies or 3 companies doing something, they release something that I really want, I need to get it. Cool. But now it's like, if I miss this thing, I know there's something else going to be around the corner that's going to want my $30, my $60, my $70, $150. And I'm almost grateful sometimes that, like, oh, cool. Like, I can afford that right now because I didn't spend them. Like, that's actually that's the weird thing that's happening for me right now. Between, you know, there's still, like, there's boxes coming in. There's these the whatever the retailer exclusive for Mythic in particular. There's Cosmic. There's like a lot of stuff coming out, and at a certain point, you're like, I can't do those in, you know, because there's just so much, and that's only one of these sort of lines. And so I think that's where we're in 2023, given everything else that's out there, and I can't afford everything else. I'm not a completist. I'm cool. I can move on. And I had to develop that even way back in the 2000s, like going to Comic-Con, especially when things started to change a little bit, where it's like they were trying to avoid the long lines, doing things like lottery draws or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, at a certain point, I had to learn and train myself. I was like, dude, if I don't get the lottery, I don't get the lottery. Like, too bad, so sad. And so that's the reality when it comes to a lot of these things. Here's the thing that I hate about it. I hate the fact that there are a ton of people that aren't the person that you said, oh, I paid for air travel, hotel, just so I could be at this con because I'm such a hardcore fan. There are people who are like, I'm going there because I know it's an exclusive. I could make a crap ton of money if I get my hands on 1 or 2 of these. And so a lot of those are being eaten up by folks that like aren't really going to be enjoying them anyway. And they're taking it away from folks who wanted it. Like, that's the part that frustrates the hell out of me. So when, you know, I don't know, that's the piece of this whole exclusivity thing that's really frustrating. But again, for me, it's less of an issue because I'll just be like, oh, well, it wasn't in the cards. So I'm open to it. I also want to say that I appreciate the fact that, like, if I'm PowerCon, that's really cool that a toy company is going to create something special for my con. And so I see the value in doing some of those things. But anyway, that's my take. It's a real kind of like loose take because that's kind of how I am as a collector. I totally sympathize with folks who are like completists. I don't know how you do it. And I imagine it creates a lot of stress and like work, and that's cool. That's where you're at. That's what you're going for. But that's not for me. So I don't have any issues with it in concept. The scalper stuff, like, that's frustrating as hell. That's the only piece where I'm like, I hate the fact that that's a reality. But
and I mean, that's largely why, you know, being where I am geographically, that's largely why I kind of just went, well, you know, I'm never going to see them, because like you'd hear about them and you'd see pictures of like San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, and then by the time I'd ever see it in a position where I could buy it, and a con exclusive that was $30 is $300, I was just like, no, I'm not interested. And it wasn't, like you said, it's probably not somebody that bought it for $30 thinking that they would love it forever and just change their mind. It's somebody that bought it for $30 with the intention of selling it for $300. That's not a specific example. I'm just throwing that out there. But I do think that in a weird way, you know, because like we've been sort of talking about, with stuff having gone online, production numbers can go up. The sort of scarcity or the rarity of these figures kind of decreases. Supply and demand has kind of leveled itself out a little bit. So then it's, you know, it sort of changes the nature of what a con exclusive is. So in a weird way, like, I kind of feel for the people that are spending all that money, and, you know, they're getting something that I can get from my couch. So I get that argument, like, people that are sort of regulars of sort of a con circuit, kind of, you know, they're kind of bummed because it's less of an exclusive. But Paddy, I think, like you said, like, the fact that these companies are sort of trying to give their customers something special, When I spoke to a few sort of people within toy companies, basically what they said was they don't make a dime off of con exclusives because production runs are pretty small because you're not selling it to sort of a mass audience. Very oftentimes, like if it's a PowerCon exclusive, for example, they're just contracted by sort of PowerCon. Like they're just they're selling them at a cost price. So it's not as though there's a huge amount of profitability because for a $50 PowerCon figure, PowerCon is basically buying it for wholesale. And it's not a huge number, so it's they're not losing money, but they're not really making anything. It really is just to sort of get some hype, get sort of within that
marketing.
news cycle.
Sure.
And it's sort of a necessary. I think one of you said necessary evil, sort of in a different context, but from their perspective, it's sort of a necessary evil to be sort of playing the part of a retailer at a con. Having a con like if you don't have a con exclusive, it's like, well, what are you doing here? Like what's what's the point? Because I think we all now just expect companies that are big enough to offer con exclusives. So there's kind of a catch-22 there where we resent that they exist, but we expect them to be there, offering something that's exclusive. So it's sort of interesting in that respect.
How often do these happen actually? Because like for Legions Con, aside from the big corporate, like the Hasbro thing, I totally get it. And that's going to be your Comic-Con's a different thing, as we kind of were talking about last night. But when we're talking about these smaller cons, for Legions Con, it's like that's their show. So they do an exclusive. Totally makes sense. They're not doing exclusives for anything else other than PowerCon, right?
To the best of my knowledge, that's correct, and that's another aspect. Is that
like Power and Legion, right? Legion Con and PowerCon; those are the only two. Yeah.
And the thing with PowerCon,
the Legions Con one is a Legions Con exclusive, so it's not through the Four Horsemen. So that's one of those examples, I think, where like they're selling a wholesale lot to PowerCon for them to do what they want with them.
Yep.
They are doing, they've been doing the tribute figures as PowerCon releases.
Right.
But then sort of offering them later as standard releases. So it's really just it's an early access type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to PowerCon, like something like that, because I'm looking at that list, it wasn't just them, right? There was a ton of things that you could order. And so I'm referring to or responding to your comment earlier about, the folks who spend on going to the con, they buy these things and then somebody else sitting on their couch can buy them. But the deal with like a PowerCon is, they have so many that they've contracted. As far as I'm concerned, the only reason they did that is because, oh crap, we have a lot more that we don't want to just have sitting. So they're selling. So what that indicates to me is like, it's not like the folks who are spending them to go there aren't going to get one. I guess it's just the notion of it truly being exclusive. But like, again, that's not on anyone else other than PowerCon contracted so many. They had, they didn't want to end up with extras. So then the other piece of that is you got to go to the con. I mean, I didn't get to go. You got to see a bunch of cool stuff. You got to see it all in person. There's going to be stuff there. So, I mean, it's this whole exclusivity thing, right? Like we want to feel special or whatever it is. Like that's the weird thing. And so
there was one retailer that said like basically collectors want to have something that other people don't have, so that's why you do it. Like you're kind of you're appeasing that sort of demographic that is gonna like hold it up in front of everybody else's face and be like, look what I got. But this I don't know if it's sad or it's kind of nice that this has sort of changed the dynamic because we can just order them online. But I mean,
real quick, I just want to say, like, because we're talking about Mythic Legions, right? Mythic Legions is a very unique property and community in that customizing is sort of like a feature of the toy, essentially, at this point. And 100%. So if you really want that's if you really want the exclusive, I want to have things that other people don't. Like, and you're doing that for Mythic Legions. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't actually think that's the route to go and wait for Mythic Legions to produce a unique character. Like, go check out the customs and like maybe do one yourself.
Get
And
a
I think
one of
that's
one.
yeah, and it's really unique. These are like amazing art pieces, essentially, right? I just to throw that out there because I think it's very different for that set. You know, when it comes to like the corporate stuff, Masters of the Universe, whatever, GI Joe, like especially when it comes to the big San Diego Comic-Con exclusives thing, that's just been something that's existed for a while. It's kind of become this tradition. I think PowerCon came around and is maybe trying to like mimic some of that and create some of that, but it's not Comic-Con, right? They're not on the scale of that and are unable to. So I don't know. To me, the exclusive thing, ultimately it's marketing. Yes, we know this. And it's a mess with the head of the consumer kind of a thing. And so I don't know, there's that. And then I just think about all the other ways that we do that as toy collectors. It's like, ooh, I happen to find a weird variant in a store in packaged with a shorter clipped, like we're always trying to find that one weird thing. And I feel like this is kind of an artificial way of creating that rather than the old way of like, oh, this is genuinely this weird thing that happened, or they had to change colors mid-production, anyway.
You mentioned San Diego Comic-Con. I mean, San Diego Comic-Con is its own thing. Like, it's not even I think somebody asked yesterday if Animal Warriors of the Kingdom of Spiro was doing San Diego Comic-Con. And my response was, I don't think they want to, at least at this point, because there's cons that suit what they're doing a little bit better.
I think Jeremy had put it best, like the term he used to describe it, where he said it's more of a boutique brand, like boutique action figure. And AWOC definitely falls into that. And I mean, to a degree, the Four Horsemen still fall into that, I feel, even though they're edging a bit out of it. Yeah, I don't think San Diego Comic-Con necessarily is the best place for a boutique shop to set up, because and I don't mean this as a pejorative, but like, this is a fairly corporate event, right?
It is now. It wasn't always, but it is.
It wasn't always, but
that's part of it too, and that's sort of what I was like thinking.
It's more of a trade show, you know what I mean? Like
on some level, and I mean, and I think a lot of people are going specifically for the big guys. People want to be in Hall H to see what the MCU is going to reveal. They want to buy the Hasbro, San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. Are they budgeting for the smaller guys? But also going back to, when you'd sort of hear about what came out as a Comic-Con exclusive after the fact, and it was San Diego Comic-Con, because you weren't hearing about Toy-Con Atlanta or PowerCon 5 years ago, right? The collecting landscape has changed. When it was kind of exclusively San Diego Comic-Con that people were really talking about as far as exclusives and all that kind of stuff, we would have to wait for a picture after the fact. Now, I mean, we just pulled up three exclusives that we're excited for. The Legions Con exclusive. Legions Con's in November. Yeah. We're sitting here in April talking about that figure. PowerCon, I think, is in August. So it's still months away. Like, is the con exclusive a different thing entirely than it was 10 years ago? And is there sort of still a mentality, like a lingering sort of mentality of what they are that really isn't connected to the sort of present representation of what they are? We're all we ordered Tanger, right? From home, where none of us had any intention of going to PowerCon to get it. And we've had, I mean, Ted's hanging out. Paddy and I got ours from Ted. Brick, you just ordered yours sort of online and saved yourself $200. Are we wrong to think of con exclusives the way we did 10 years ago? Has it changed?
I would say yes, but I'd also argue that, like, I know, speaking just for myself, I've changed as a collector.
Mhm.
Like 10 years ago, I was not into the more boutique stuff, right? Like my tastes kind of evolved in that time. I don't mean to say better or worse, just different,
Mhm.
right? Like I don't think I would get like anxiety like I like I did then for like a Marvel Legends exclusive where I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, I'll never be able
Yeah.
to get that. Doesn't exist in my world quite as much anymore.
Mhm.
Um, and the cons themselves that I'm interested in, like PowerCon, Legions Con, like it the stress just isn't quite as intense as I felt for
Mhm.
something like San Diego.
Sure.
So much so that like I'll still if it's easily done, I could still get something from San Diego, and they've ramped up their production numbers. I'm certain of it, and
Mhm.
their method of distribution has gotten wider. Um, I don't know. I agree with you. It has changed a lot. I think I've changed. Maybe we've all changed in 10
Yeah.
years, and
I mean, that's a good point too, and I hadn't
and the
even
game
really
has
thought about
changed.
that.
Yeah, the game
Well,
has changed for
that's what I'm
sure.
sort of suggesting. The game
For
has
sure.
changed.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I think collecting has changed. I kind of hinted at it earlier, or sort of brushed up against this conversation earlier, in that there's just so much happening right now, and
Mhm.
so much that's available.
Mhm.
And there's so much information that's available that you're alluding to in terms of the internet, in terms of like, fan communities sort of sharing information to the point where it's like, before something is available, this was happening yesterday with Snake Mountain, before something's officially available, people are like, oh
Everybody
no,
knows.
it doesn't work.
Mhm.
But no, if you have this direct link, you can order it now
Yeah.
early.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not one person that's doing that. That information's out there. So it's like a bunch of people are doing it.
Mhm.
So it's a completely different game, even with the exclusives. If they're able to offer more than one, it's really not that hard if you can be friendly, make
Sure.
connections with folks online, which is, I mean,
Mhm.
that's how like Hedgehog was, who got me my Legions Cons exclusive last year, right? And it was just
Mhm.
like, yeah, no, I got you. It's not like he's not going to be falling in line, and as long as he's got space and the amount that you're allowed to get, let me pick it up for you.
Mhm.
So the accessibility is very different now on all
Yeah.
those levels, right? Even if they weren't offering it directly for you to order like PowerCon did, yeah, like it's a lot easier to get access to these things if you really want them. Now, again, I think it's very different, as some folks have alluded to, like San Diego Comic-Con is different from these. I will say that I think some of the smaller cons and trying to do it, they do it for different reasons, but it's like the exclusivity of it is the question. Like, I feel like if you're going to Comic-Con, because of the nature of that, because they can guarantee that they're going to sell out every single exclusive that they
Yeah.
bring,
Yeah.
that thing is going to be pretty damn exclusive and hard to get, and that people are going to be clamoring for it. So it's going to be desirable. So on that note, they make them pretty desirable for
Yeah.
the most
Mhm.
part.
And they even do, like, certain companies will do like, okay, this is a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, but there will
Yeah.
probably be stock left over. This, we made 100 of them, so
Yeah.
you better get here early, and
Yeah.
or it's going to be a
Yeah.
lottery, and
Yeah.
or you have it's a golden ticket thing
Yeah.
or whatever, right? Like, so they
Yep.
do. There's different degrees, I think. But
So like,
I think the smaller guys like AWOC, right,
uh-huh.
or Mythic Legions, like they just can't do that. Like they're just not making as much stuff. Like it's a
Right.
numbers
Sure.
game, right? So
Right.
if you're Hasbro, you're like, you can do whatever you want. You can make 100 of one thing and 1,000 of another and 10,000 of another, and you're going to get rid of all of it regardless.
Right. So it's like,
Um,
I think the game has changed. I think definitely I
Mhm.
agree with you, Patty. We've all sort of changed in that time, but I think the game, ultimately the game has changed. The accessibility is different. The way people collect is different. The competition's different. And so, yeah, I feel like the idea of exclusives and how we look at them does have to shift a little bit and change, because
Sure.
I'm seeing things where it's like they're not. People are saying that this thing is going to be super exclusive. It's going to be hard to find, but then it doesn't really sort of end up being that way.
mhm.
And I want to throw in one other thing. HasLabs
No,
or
you're not.
Mattel Creations deal. Well, no, HasLabs, like, for real.
Yeah. Yep.
Like,
Mm.
we're going to produce a gigantic
Crowdfunding.
figure in Galactus or the Sentinels or whatever. And there's this notion for a lot of people, it's like, oh my God, this is going to be really hard to get, etc. And it's like,
You can't get rid of yours.
well, I can. I've just been really
Yeah.
lazy, and I'm in a position to be able to let it sit. But I think,
Yeah.
no, I think at the end of the day, the way that works now is like whoever wants one and is able to put the money together will get one. So
Yeah.
it's like
Mhm.
the demand is kind of defined, right? So you could say, well, there are people who couldn't afford it, and so they're missing out and they're going to come get it after. But what's the reality of that? If you couldn't afford the price then, like something's going to happen between now and the year that you're going to finally get it, where it's going to be even more money. Like that
It's
just
double
doesn't
the
make
price.
it
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
make
double the
any
price,
sense.
and now I can afford it.
So given the nature of those kinds of things and that sort of as an outlet, I don't know how limited things are anymore outside of the. And again, I think PowerCon kind of just shows that like they contracted way too much. It wasn't just, and it's also like it's a splintered thing. Like they had exclusives for like what, 7 different brands or something, like Legends of Dragonor and like
There's
whatever
like
it was. Yeah. So it's like they've got a lot to sell, and they're not, I don't know, PowerCon's in the business of selling action figures and warehousing figures. So they're just like trying to make sure
they
that
want
those
to
things
move it.
move.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
They want to move it.
So it's a different, I do think it's a different game. I think people are really at this point trying to figure out how do we market to people and make these things. And I'm curious, I guess you're going to go at them, but I would love to revisit the SDCC thing with Ted's comment in a second. But what did you have to?
No, I was just going to pull it up.
Okay.
I was just going to say let's jump into the chat here and just sort of see what other people are saying. Payne was saying I'm only completist on one line. The others he can pick and choose. So it's not that bad. I mean, if you are a completist on a line and they drop something that's like, overpriced because it's an exclusive and it's harder to find. Sure. Like that's, I get where people get frustrated with that. As somebody that's not a completist on any line, I kind of just shrug and go like, oh, well, I mean, maybe it'll come up at some point. Maybe somebody will grab an extra that I know. Maybe it'll be at a toy show or a different con or whatever. Larry Reed said San Diego Comic-Con is its own beast. And
real quick,
it can't
before
be
you
cheap
move on
to get a small booth.
Yeah, before you move on from Payne's, I was just going to say Payne's is that like example of someone we were talking about earlier, where he's saying I'm a completist on classified, but Payne's is a customizer too, and so he's creating these one-off characters that don't exist, and so I don't know. That's where I would love to really I'm curious where this is going to go in the future. I don't know what the resale, the reality is on some of those because not everyone's in the market for them.
Sure.
But again, as I've said, when you're going to a con. So, you're telling me about Legion's Con, like, why aren't you going? And I told you, because I know I'm factoring in how much I would spend.
Yeah.
The reason when I say that, it's because it's not even going to buy Four Horsemen stuff. It's going where all these customizers are there in person.
Yeah.
And they're selling parts and often painted figures or whatever that you can't get any elsewhere. You just can't. So I bring that up just because I think that's to me, that's the new exclusive. That's the exclusive. I can't, I'm going to get a Nikki Nicole custom character. Occasionally they'll throw things up online and it's a bunch it's even worse than the exclusive because it's everybody on the internet competing to get
for
this
one
thing.
item. Yeah.
Right. But if you're going to pay to go to this con, it's a couple hundred people that are going for this one thing.
That's, that Atreyu test shot head that I have, as well as one of the items that's allegedly going to be shipped to me.
Keep putting it out there to hold him accountable because if he doesn't follow through, he's going to feel real bad. Good job.
Shame.
I mean that to me is more exciting. Like if I'd missed Tanger, I'd have been like, I mean it's cool, but I'm way more excited, and there will be more sort of a place of pride for these one of one items than anything that's just hard to get, I guess, right? Certain items you really have to know somebody, and it has to either be sort of gifted to you or you got to pay test shots go for a lot for some lines. they go for even more from other lines, and then sort of resale, you know, they jump in price every time they get sold on. So it's a very, very interesting sort of beast, and it is very different because it's even smaller production runs, or one of ones, or you know, a handful or whatever. But yeah, it's Ted makes a pretty good point. Says, well, I agree with Spiro
That's
not
where I was
doing San
going.
Diego Comic-Con. AWOC are a new line, and we learned at a recent toy show that there's still people who don't know about AWOC.
Yep.
More cons help brand awareness.
See, this is exactly where I was going last night when I asked you that. It was less about the, ooh, can we bring an exclusive? And I recognize what you said yesterday is 100% true. They're not a big outfit. It's like one person, maybe kind of two. And so I know that's not in the capacity.
Are they going to get a 4-foot table or an 8-foot table in the kilometer of tables?
But here's the deal. I will tell you that there were people like myself who would go to Comic-Con specifically for that, because it was a place that attracted a bunch of, like, there's Artist Alley, there's a small, and there's like a lot of cool stuff. The reason being is because it's all in one place that you discover things that you would have never otherwise seen. I've got a bunch of stuff on the walls or whatever that's like random things that were like, wow, I've never seen that again, right? But to go back to the AWOC at an Comic-Con, part of this was, I know you're saying they're a boutique brand, but you've also said, and we've heard, like, if they had their choice, they being Jason, of where this property could go, there's an openness for it to being like this, like whether it's a cartoon or this more like something with my mass appeal. And that's the only reason I asked about that, because in my mind, like, that is not only a place for the people walking by, the average customer, like say myself going by, but there's a ton of industry folks. It is a trade show. And like, that's where, like, there are folks that I know, like, I know people that was their job, was to kind of look around for like potential interest in IP. Like, there was things have changed. The landscape's changed a little bit, but there was a time when Netflix was just going around looking to be like, we'll develop this, we'll work on this. And so
I think that's a good point, though. The landscape has changed, and I think that San Diego Comic-Con, by and large, people go for the big stuff. And I think the argument that I've heard from Jason and Jeremy both kind of said the same thing to some extent. Jeremy more explicitly than Jason, but it's too big. Like, you're going to get a handful of people, but isn't it more fun if you can have like a more intimate setting, with people that are sort of more in that small IP, small brand, small line mentality? Because everybody that is at, you know, PowerCon or Atlanta, Toylanta, or I don't know what other shows they're doing because I'm not out there. Legions Con.
I was going to say something like Designer Con seems to me like a more natural fit for AWOC.
Exactly.
Where you get that intimacy, and it's still, correct me if I'm wrong, Brick, but like Designer Con's still pretty big, right?
It's pretty big. It's in Pasadena now. Yeah, that's where it's been. And so it's again, that's one of those things, because of location, et cetera, that a lot of the same people that are interested in shopping for IP or, like, you know, work in the industry would they look for things. They do. They really do look for, like, ooh, that could be something, if it hit, could be interesting. That, you know, and the name of the game is not having to develop something yourself.
I will say this to sort of counter to that point, specifically that point. I think the small guys know, and because the world has changed, because the landscape has changed, the small guys know that they can get in touch with the big guys. We've now got, like, the dynamic has changed. You don't just have to get discovered anymore.
No, you know, I don't mean it in that way.
You can have you know, between Facebook, between YouTube, between like all the social media channels. I think that's kind of where people can find, you know, the diamond in the rough, so to speak. Like, it's out there to be found. But I also think that the really proactive, keen people with great IPs can reach out and sort of shop it to places.
They absolutely can. It's a mix, though. It's not just that one dimension. If you're at a Designer Con, for example, you've got a ton of people who are just like fans and consumers who are going to learn about new things. And so there's
I think
that
Designer Con is it would be a good one.
Right.
But I also think that, like, geography plays a big part in these.
Of course,
like,
yeah.
Four
sure.
Horsemen does shows that are driving distance from
Yeah.
Four Horsemen Studios for the most part.
Totally.
For somebody like Jason to pack up a U-Haul truck and drive it out
Yeah.
to San Diego is
Yeah.
logistically kind of not going to happen. Cost-wise, it's not going to happen. If he can hit, smaller shows on the East Coast, I think it just makes more sense. But I don't know. I mean, that's
And real quick, just to add on the one thing that I'm just remembering, like our conversation last night, I didn't verbalize it. It also came in the context of when you're talking about looking for distribution for the comic. And again, that would be the place they're all there, right? And just sort of like talking to people, not necessarily the people who are doing distribution, but like talking to other creators, like, how did you do that? Like, who do you talk to? So it's a mix of things. Again, there's something to be said, as annoying as San Diego can be, especially, with the sort of the Hollywood influence and everything. It is still one of these, like, well, I don't know, since post-pandemic, but everything is there. And it's really convenient for a lot of people to be like, oh, geez, there's a lot of stuff here. Now, is it going to hurt you to not go? No, it's not. It just seemed, the reason I asked was just, I think it was in the context of like us talking about, as Ted pointed out, like there's a lot of people who don't know about AWOP. And I'm just like, well, there's a place that I can think of where you could potentially get a lot of people excited and get a lot of eyeballs.
But
they're looking for this stuff.
I just think if you're stuck in a corner of like an artist's alley type thing, where people, the doors open, at 8 and you're there till 5 or whatever, people might skip that corner because they want to hit the big guys and see the big displays and the fancy shiny stuff, right? You might just, I don't know. I mean,
let me say this about that though, because I'll tell you how I approach it. I know a lot of people do. The big fancy stuff. What are you talking? Hasbro, Mattel. Again, it's the exclusives. I'm going to fall in line for a couple hours to get the exclusives. But if I don't have the lottery, I don't have it. Here's the deal. You're going there to look at stuff, but like, what are you going to look at? Figures that are going to be coming out in Target so you don't need to go to those things where people are spending their money.
Yeah.
Right. But my point is, like, that's not where you're spending your money. That's the thing. When people go to Comic-Con, there is this sense of like, crap, I'm here. Like, I've done that shit. I'm here. Like, I paid for this thing. I got to buy something.
I got to make it worthwhile.
Right. Yeah. And like I'd go to look at Super 7 stuff, but I'm not buying anything there because I can get that somewhere else. Or it's the same thing with Hasbro. Yeah. So, but when am I going to run into this? Who's this Jason Spiro did with these weird toys? Like, I've never seen these before. Like, I don't know. I don't even know where to get those things. How much? $40? Cool. Let me take some. Anyways, that just to throw out how that whole thing has been in my experience. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look, the reality is I don't think there's not a right or wrong. There's not a this is what it is. This isn't what it is. Whatever, everybody's gonna do what works for them. Personally, for myself, like, I'm planning to go to Legions Con literally to hang out and like meet people that I've chatted with or done videos with in person. To sit and have a drink instead of like it being virtual and stuff like that. So, Brick, you mentioned like going to the con is sort of part of the thing, and like for me, I wanted to go to Legions Con once, for the experience, for hanging out, and for just I genuinely like. I'll probably pick up the exclusives, and there's like a couple figures that if they had them on the Four Horsemen table, I'd pick them up. But I'm not really going with the intention of buying figures, buying stuff, because I also have to haul it back home, which is easier said than done.
Right.
So
I'd say make some space for some of the customs, just based on people that I know that have come back from Legions Con. You're not going to be buying tons of figures, but some of those customs are going to be too hard.
Oh, absolutely, to say no to. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to spend any money. I'm saying I'm not going there with the intention of like stocking up on the last three waves.
No, exactly.
And to that end, Michael Casper was in the chat and he mentioned this. I will be doing their show in the Cabal Legion's Lair on June 6th.
Nice.
Really looking forward to that. Still kind of surprised that they want me to do that, but I mean, that's cool. I'll do it. It'll be fun.
You're charming. It's going to be great. We're all going to tune in, man.
My preferences as far as Mythic Legions and Michael Casper's preferences are like the exact opposite. So it could be pretty fun.
They want variety.
Absolutely.
It's the controversy they're hunting for. They want spirited
Yeah, it's
debate.
going to be a really clickbaity episode to have me on. I'm about as edgy as an orange, so that's gonna go over well.
They're like, first question, red and black. What's your issue with it?
Yeah. Why do you hate everything that's red and black? And you're like, whoa. Anyway, that's all I got, guys. And we're about an hour and 40, which is about 40 minutes longer than we planned. I say that facetiously. I don't think we've done an hour-long video in a long time.
Zesty.
Mike from eCollectibles has joined us right on time. Kelly says edgy, more like zesty. Okay. Larry says cons are fun, and I know that Larry does all the Transformers ones, so he can certainly speak to that.
Yeah.
And I guess at the end of the day, it's kind of like go to the con to have a good time, to have the experience. And if you pick up some cool toys, that's great. And if you don't, that's great too. And if there's a con exclusive that you want, I think now the reality is, hella dope toys, hook Paddy and I up with a figure. Mike at eCollectibles does his very best to kind of buy as many kind of con exclusives and sort of get them into Canada to ship out to Canadians.
Absolutely. Make him sound like a smuggler. I love it.
On some level, I mean, it kind of, right? Like, these are con exclusive, and then these toy stores are like, but I can get you one.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike got the Furious 4 figures. Mike got the unknown one. I think as far as Legions Con goes, at least there might be some more of that happening come Legions Con. We shall see. And Payne mentioned, smugglers rather. Payne says, or to hang out with friends from all over the world. That's why I'm going.
Yeah.
That's like, honestly, that's the big draw for me. I chat with Michael Casper regularly, but I've never met him. Right. Brick, we've never met in person. Paddy, we've never met in person.
True.
I've had, phone calls and video chats and all this kind of stuff, but there's something it's kind of special to like be in the same room with somebody, and really just kind of hang out, where there's sort of not the time constraints of like, oh, I'm in a different time zone and I got to go and do this. And I got to go and do this. If you're at the con, you're at the con, you're hanging out, you're having a good time. The exclusives are a bonus for attendees. They're really a bonus if you're not there and you can get them. So anyways, Brick, what do you got going on? What's anything coming up? Where can people check out your stuff?
Yeah, so I will definitely be hanging out with Kayla again to be continuing on our her journey through Lego. So she's building this massive Rivendell set. It's her first time with Lego.
That's bonkers.
So and so she's not even halfway through it, and we've sort of been checking in on progress and sort of along the way sprinkling, like, for those of you who are maybe not as familiar with Lego, just a little bit of like Lego nerdy knowledge and just sort of different thoughts on the hobby. So we're scheduling that. It looks like it's going to be, if not this week, next week. I am working on editing a new show where I do a little bit more like deeper, long form interviews with certain fans and customizers, but usually to kind of drop in there a little bit of toy history. So I'm working on one that's going to touch on Micronauts, Microman, Diaclone, sort of it all, with Fanagan Collectibles, who has sort of been leading the charge of trying to revive Micronauts. So those are the two things that stand out in my brain.
Nice.
So just, subscribe. I'm on IG, brick.something, and YouTube here. I think if you just go to bricksomething.com, it'll take you to the channel, and I'll notify you of all that stuff.
Paddy, what about you?
And I was just
Adam?
going to say, sorry, you and I are still potentially talking about Mandalorian. So we'll continue. We'll
Yeah,
see.
we want to
We've
do a
been
season
on the
recap,
Star
but
Wars
just
thing.
yeah, scheduling
Yeah.
hasn't worked out. Just with
Yeah.
with my wife being away,
Same
we
here.
would have done it this week for sure. But maybe soon.
It's more for us anyways. But if you guys want to watch, you can come hang out too.
Yeah.
How about you, Paddy?
Not much. Infrequent poster on Instagram, but I still love it. Like Captain Colonel Collector. Hoping to do a few more of these shows with you, Adam, in the next little bit, and the rest of the Knights of the North. Truly missed you guys, and of course, meeting wonderful people like Brick here. It's really fun, man. So other than that, pretty quiet, pretty chill, and hopefully we could do a few more of these.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we once the Animal Wars of the Kingdom game comes out, we want to do playthrough on here. Brick, I don't know how many people. I mean, maybe one of us can sort of like moderate, or I don't know how that'll work. But
you mean playing the game on thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. Anyway, I will. I'll put links in the description below. I forgot to do that this morning because I was busy doing other stuff, admittedly. But I will add them. I will add them later. So if you're watching the replay, you can find those links in the description below. For anybody that's watching right now, they're not there. That's the magic of the internet. You can always just fix it in post.
Asynchronous.
Right.
But yeah, on that note, it's been an absolute pleasure to hang out with you guys. And yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again soon. I love having both you guys on. I love having everybody on that I have on. That's why I have them on. I was gonna say if you've been a guest one time, maybe that's why. But that's not. I haven't had anybody on that I wouldn't have back on, so I shouldn't have even thought that. But anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure. I will talk to you guys all again very, very soon. If you like the video, please show that by hitting the like button. If you want to see more, subscribe. The random videos that I do sort of throughout the week of unboxing, open late, hit that notification button so that you'll get the little bell icon so that you'll know when I'm doing that. But other than that, until next time, bye-bye.